7 years.
We're going to start.
Yeah. And I think, are you a diver too?
No.
No?
Well,
Oh.
a scuba diver, not
Yeah,
a...
scuba diving, that's right.
Dive instructor. Oh, we're starting?
Before I jump. Good evening, everyone. I think we might have a few latecomers this evening, given the weather out there. My name is Christine Wessler. I'm head of University Counseling, and I'd like to extend a warm welcome to you on behalf of the University Counseling team who's here tonight and St. George's School. Thank you for making the trip out on this rainy evening. It is my great privilege to introduce our guest speaker this evening, backed by popular demand, Mr. David Prutow. Mr. Prutow has presented at St. George's School before, and I feel very fortunate to have him here this evening. Many of us in University Counseling have heard him speak at conferences in the U.S., and that's actually how my path with him first crossed. Mr. Prutow has served as the Director of Guidance for several high-performing secondary schools, including Hunterdon Central, Oxbridge Academy, and Morristown. He's also worked at Princeton. Mr. Prutow was recently the Director of College Counseling at Oxbridge Academy of the Palm Beaches in Florida and has just retired. He's renowned for implementing the latest and most innovative college counseling strategies and is a nationally recognized speaker on college admissions issues and college athletic recruiting. Tonight, he will present to you on the intricacies of the U.S. college application process, and we are certain that you will find his presentation dynamic and relevant. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Mr. David Prutow.
Thank you.
Welcome.
She lies a lot. Dynamic and relevant. Uh-oh. The pressure's on. Well, welcome this evening. One of the things I'd like to do is kind of like establish an informal basis for our discussion tonight. And what I'd like you to think about is if I am stating something that is not clear, because I speak on college admissions all the time, I travel all over the world and speak on this stuff, and I just ramble because I know it so well. So I might say something that is not clear to you, and if it is, raise your hand and say, could you clarify that? Because it's important that you understand what the heck I'm talking about. But parents tend to ask questions that are very parochial in nature and very personal in nature. So I'm warning you, if it's a question specific to your child, keep your hand down. Let's ask questions that are relevant for the entire audience, okay? If you have questions regarding your own personal child, my email address is up there. You can communicate with me, Ms. Wessler, with the great college counseling department here at St. George's. That's okay. But let's make sure we try and get through the information this evening. So if you have a question, ask, okay? Another thing, I don't pretend to know everything. Matter of fact, everything I've learned, I've stole from somebody else, okay? And I've worked in the college admissions game, for so many years that I'm kind of a cynic, so I apologize for that right up front. The college admissions system in the States can turn you into a cynic pretty quickly, particularly the way the landscape in college admissions has been changing in the last 10 years. So keep that in perspective. Also keep in perspective that I will speak in generalities. In other words, what I will tell you is largely true for the majority of cases in admissions in the States. But it's not true in every case, okay? So every college is a little bit different. And every college admissions officer that reads an application is a little bit different. And that's why I'm going to start this presentation with a little exercise, which I'd like you to think about. And then we'll get into all the stuff that's in the handout that you have. So somebody throw a name of a university in the United States at me. Hello? Stanford, Harvard. Okay, so we got two right in the top 5. Matter of fact, we got number 1, 2 in the top 3. Okay, so whenever I ask that question, I always get those types of answers. Okay, Stanford or Harvard or Princeton or Yale, the typical name schools in the United States. Well, guess what? There's 1,500 four-year universities in the United States. Okay, and I've seen probably over 1,000 of them. Okay, and I can assure you there's a lot of great universities out there other than the name universities that you're probably familiar with. And I might share a couple of stories with you relative to that. But tonight, I'm going to share a story about a fictitious university. Having sat in admissions departments, I've been very, very fortunate to have been a reader for Princeton University, sat in admissions settings in a holistic setting where I've actually been in committee watching decisions being made. at some very high-level universities in the United States. So we're going to do a little mock admissions thing to teach you a few things about admissions in the States. So if you'd go ahead. Okay, we're going to talk about Red Brick University. Okay, now obviously Red Brick University is fictitious. There is no such university. However, it is similar to a lot of small liberal arts universities in the United States. Okay? It's in Massachusetts. The reason I threw Red Brick University in Massachusetts is because everybody in the United States is fixated on the elite schools in the Northeast. Okay? Which drives me crazy. Of course, where did I grow up? In the Northeast. I'm a Jersey guy. And then I moved to Pennsylvania, lived in Pennsylvania for 28 years before I moved to Florida, and then I moved to Hawaii. So I'm about as far away from the Northeast as you can possibly get now. Okay, but it's an old established university founded in 1871 with 2,400 students. Now 2,400 students, is that large or small in United States university standards? It's very small, okay? But it's pretty typical for a small liberal arts university, okay? They advertise that they have students from 49 states and 7 countries. Look on the website of every single university in the United States, and they will advertise that type of thing, including Stanford and Harvard. So now think about that, and that's critical, one of the points I'm going to be making tonight. Diversity is huge in U.S. admissions. If they're advertising 49 states and 7 countries, if you happen to be a kid that applies to Red Brick from that one state that's missing, which by the way is South Dakota, okay, guess what you're going to be? I don't care what your credentials are. If you're from South Dakota, you're what? You're in. Okay, because then next year on their website it's going to say what? 50 states. Okay? If you're from a country that is not one of those 7 countries, okay, and I apologize to my Chinese friends here, China is obviously one of them. Okay, Korea is one of them. India is one of them. Okay? But if you're from a country that's not one of them, you have an advantage, diversity. The reason I bring that up is I'm asking you as parents to think outside of the box. All of you are going to have your kids apply to what? The same stinking schools. Okay? Think outside of the box. The colleges have quota systems. They say they don't, they do. If you're one of the ones that are applying, you're the only applicant from St. George's, you're the only applicant with this particular religious background or racial background, okay? If you're the only one applying from that school with that background, your odds skyrocket. Play the diversity card. Most people do not play that diversity card because they're always fixated on the same 20 schools. You're all applying to the same schools. You're all competing against each other. Think about that for a second. Doesn't make any sense. Okay? Speaking of which, and I asked your kids this today, and how many kids were in that 10-11 presentation? 320 kids sitting here. I asked, how many people have heard of Grinnell University? Actually, 2 people raised their hands. And I don't know if they were lying or not, but 2 people out of the 300 and some odd kids raised their hands. Okay? How many of you have ever heard of Grinnell? Okay, we got 3. Okay? Well, I'm telling you, or a couple more. Well, I'm telling you, Grinnell is an elite liberal arts university. Just happens to be in the middle of the United States, in a cornfield in Iowa. Okay? It's not in the Northeast. Okay? So if you're willing to think outside of the box, you can get a great education at a great university if you're willing to play the diversity card. Think outside of the box. There's over 1,500 awesome universities in the United States. I've got a client of mine right now who I said, you've got to play the diversity card. Were you crazy? She was applying to the same schools. And she was a liberal arts kid. She wanted to apply to all these liberal arts schools. Swarthmore, Williams, Middlebury, okay? All the top 3 Northeast elite liberal arts schools, okay? Amherst, Wesleyan. I'm thinking to myself, great, okay? So I said, how about Sewanee? How many of you heard of that? Ooh, we have one, okay? Sewanee, University of the South. It's in between Nashville and Chattanooga, okay? More Rhodes Scholars per capita than any other university in the United States, including the Ivies. Nobody's heard of it. Great school, beautiful. If you're a Harry Potter freak, go there because it looks like Hogwarts. Okay? All the professors wear academic robes and they walk around it and they teach classes in their academic robes. Go to Caltech. You think you're going to be taught by a Caltech professor? You're going to be taught by what? A grad student or a TA. Who works for that professor? Go to Sewanee. Guess who you're going to be taught by? A professor every time. Okay? So think about things like that. I just want to stress to you to think outside of the box. It's a private school, it's a liberal arts school. Know this about the United States. Okay? Schools are broken up into categories. Okay, private, public. Okay? Private schools, by the way, all the Ivy League schools are what? Private. Okay? University of Michigan, UCLA, Cal Berkeley, okay? University of North Carolina, University of Virginia, Penn State University, they're all what? Publics, meaning they're supported by their states, being funded partially by the states. Okay, the privates are all their income from tuition and endowments. Speaking of endowments, by the way, Harvard could, for the next 60 years, never charge another kid a dime for tuition and still have money to spare. That's how large their endowment is. But they charge us 66 grand per year instead. And if they charged 150 grand a year, you'd still what? You'd still want to go because it's Harvard. Okay? So, liberal arts. You got public, private, and you got liberal arts, and then you got national research universities. Okay? Liberal arts schools are smaller schools like Red Brick that are focused on making sure that the kids get the humanities in addition to other stuff. So you're going to get history and philosophy and biology and your languages and stuff. You're going to get a broad brush education. The whole purpose of a liberal arts school is to teach you to be a great communicator. Okay? To be successful in getting along with other people, to be broad-based in everything, be knowledgeable about everything, and then major into whatever your passion is. The liberal arts philosophy and the liberal arts education. Okay, and the Fortune 500 companies like that philosophy because they want communicators. Or as opposed to the national research universities, which still can be liberal arts. They do have liberal arts colleges within them. But let's say you're an engineer or a business major, or a math major, or a, some type of, chemistry major or a neuroscience person, every course you take is going to be focused on making you an expert in that area. You're not going to get a broad-brushed education. You're going to get a specific education, in that area, period. So know that, okay? So some kids fit better into the liberal arts model. Some kids fit better into the national research university model, okay? Red Brick is a private liberal arts school, okay? It's got a 3-2 program with a neighboring prestigious university, okay? 3-2 program meaning you could, if you wanted to, for example, get your master's in your MBA, you could do it in a 3-2 program, spend 3 years at Red Brick and 2 years at whatever the prestigious university it was hooked with. Like Sewanee, for example, the one I gave you an example of before, their 3-2 programs are all hooked with Vanderbilt. Okay, so you can do a 6-year med program through Sewanee, and you go to your last 2 years at Vanderbilt. You can engineering programs, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so you can look at those types of programs, whether or not they have actual programs with other neighboring, quote unquote, name big research universities. Okay, another thing you should think about the liberal arts education. Okay. Or when you're looking at thinking outside of the box, you might think to yourself, well, Mr. Prutow, you're nuts. My kid's going to the best school that I can get them into, period, end of discussion. Well, that best school might cost you 66 grand a year, and by the time they graduate, who the heck knows, it might be 80 grand a year, okay? And your kid's going to go to grad school anyway, okay? Well, what's more important, the undergrad diploma or the grad diploma? The graduate school diploma is more important. So your goal then, therefore, is to get into grad school. So if you go to this huge, elite, prestigious university as an undergrad, and your GPA is a 3.0, and Johnny from Podunk University has a 4.0, they're getting into the prestigious grad school. You're not. Okay? So you got to think about that also. Okay, 35% acceptance rate at Red Brick. So think in terms of that. Red Brick has a 35% acceptance rate. Is this an elite selective school or an easy school? Anybody know? Yeah, it's amazing how many people say it's pretty easy. Okay? There's only, out of the 1,500 schools that we're talking about, only 400 of them have acceptance rates lower than 50%. Think about that. Okay? So yeah, this is very selective. I mean, you know what the acceptance rate at Syracuse is? Is that a decent school? Anybody know? Decent school? Yes? No? Maybe? Yeah, it's a really good school. What's their acceptance rate? Anybody know? 53%. And everybody says, oh my God, it must be a dummy school. Acceptance rates. Acceptance rates are wonderful because you know what Red Brick is going to try and do every year of their existence? They're going to try and lower what? They're going to try and lower that number. Because the lower that 35% gets, the more you what? The more you want to get in it. Okay? So once they become selective, more people apply. The more people that apply, the more people they what? Reject. And then their rate goes what? Down. You guys all talked about Stanford and Harvard when I asked for names. Guess what their acceptance rates are? Between 5 and 6%. Think about that. Think about the absurdity of that acceptance rate. Okay? 5.3%. So let's just say 5%. 95 out of 100 kids are getting rejected at Stanford and Harvard. 95 out of 100 kids are getting rejected. All of them are great kids. Okay? Think about that. Red Brick is going to do what Yale does, and yeah, by the way, Yale's notorious for it. They're going to send a letter to every single kid in the world that got National Merit semifinalist standing when they took their PSAT. And that letter is going to say, congratulations on your great test score. We hope you apply to Yale. And then Johnny runs home and says, Mom, look at this letter I got from Yale. Yale wants me. No, Yale wants you to apply. Because you're probably going to get what? Rejected. And it's, you know, and we all laugh about it because it really is like rolling the dice. Great kids are routinely rejected at the selective universities. Okay? Their strategic goal at Red Brick University, advancing academic excellence and becoming increasingly competitive as a selective and a distinctive liberal arts college. I took that from another liberal arts college verbatim. Okay? Advancing academic excellence, yeah, we all want that, and becoming increasingly competitive, meaning driving that number what? Down. And the way you drive that number down is by increasing application volume. Get people to apply. Okay? And the Common App has done a great job of that. Okay? Red Brick University is known for its prestigious music conservatory and renowned undergraduate neuroscience program. Pretty cool that it has both. By the way, that's taken directly from another elite middle liberal arts school, which is their mission, and does have a prestigious music conservatory and renowned undergraduate neuroscience program. So you can be a liberal arts program and have these things. Division III athletics. And you know what that means? Anybody? Go ahead.
There's 3 divisions.
Okay. There's 3 divisions in American sports, okay? Collegiate sports. at least NCAA, National Collegiate Athletic Association sports. Division I, Division II, and Division III, okay? Most of the small elite liberal arts schools are Division III. The distinction of Division III is there are no athletic scholarships allowed for a Division III school. Doesn't mean you're not a good athlete, just means they're not giving any money for athletics. So the entire focus for the student athlete is on what? Their education, academics. Whereas the big D1 schools, Stanford being one of them, by the way, okay, give athletic scholarships, okay, to recruitable athletes. Now, let me know who won the national basketball or the NCAA basketball tournament last year? Duke, okay? Decent school? Yes? Yeah, awesome school. Acceptance rate below 10%. Ivy League level status. Top 5 ranking. You trying to tell me every single kid on that basketball team meets the admission standards for the normal kid that applies to Duke? No. Or Stanford, or the other D1s. Now the distinction is the Ivy Leagues are D1. A lot of people don't know that. But the Ivy League does not give athletic aid. Okay? Red Brick Division III does not give athletic aid. Okay? Red Brick is also a liberal school. And the reason I'm telling you this, if you're an ultra-conservative, don't go there. Why? Why would you do that to yourself? Okay? It's known for being notably left-leaning, has liberal attitudes towards acceptance and social justice. Okay? It has an ED program and an ED2 program. ED meaning early decision. Okay? And let me teach you this right now. Admissions decisions or admissions programs. There's regular admission, which is usually around January 1 and January 15 deadlines. No strings attached. You can apply to as many schools as you want. Okay? There's early decision, meaning how many schools can you apply to? 1. Binding. You apply ED, okay? You're accepted, you're going. Okay, it's a contract. You get to apply to 1 ED school, and it's binding. Red Brick has ED and ED2, meaning they have 2 ED programs. They're trying to catch the kids from the other elite prestigious universities that didn't get in ED1 November 1st or November 15, and they have an ED2 deadline of January 15. You too could play that game, and many do. So you could apply to one school. Let's say you applied to Brown University ED1, got your application in November 15 for their ED deadline. You'll hear back, okay, before the holidays. You don't get into Brown, then you throw your ED2 application into Emory, hoping that you'll get in there. Also binding. But you had to sit on that Emory application until you found out about what? Brown, but you couldn't send it in yet. And then you can apply regular decision to all these other schools, and you can apply to all these other schools called early action. Okay? Early action meaning not binding, but still has an early application deadline of November 1 or November 15. Am I making any sense? Nod. Okay? So, what we want to do is we want to evaluate some candidates for Red Brick University. Okay? Next slide, please. And when we evaluate these candidates, we're going to evaluate them just like most universities do. The number one consideration when we evaluate these kids, the number one consideration by far is grades in rigorous courses. If you don't have great grades and a rigorous curriculum, go no further. Okay? And I have sat in committee and I've said, I've watched it, okay? And they have cutoffs. Even the schools that are holistic admissions, and Red Brick is holistic admissions, meaning they want to look at the whole person. They want to analyze all the data, look at all the test scores, look at the character, look at the essay, look at the recommendations, look at all the activities, yada, yada. They do it holistically, as opposed to some schools which are just strict academic index, GPA, test scores, in or out. Red Brick is holistic. But even the holistic schools don't have enough time to look at every stinking kid. So if you don't meet their cutoff for grades and rigor, they're not going to throw you into the pool to look at you closer. Does that make sense? You got to have the grades and rigor, or go no further. Now, does anybody know what I mean by rigor? Yeah. Higher level courses, AP, honors, IB, okay? Or the highest courses you can do well in without crashing and burning. Okay, in other words, getting good grades. I hate to put pressure on kids and saying, oh, you got to do rigor, 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 you're nuts. You got to do rigor and get the grades and still have a life and not be so stressed out that you're turning into a basket case. Okay? So everything is weighed into that because there's a school out there for everybody. But grades and rigor are the most important determinant. Okay? And remember, when we talk about rigor, we're talking about courses in 5 areas: math, science, English, social studies, and world language. All those other courses like basket weaving 101 don't count. Okay? They're not going to look at them for your cumulative GPA. Okay? That is one of the 5. Okay? Math, science, English, social studies, and foreign language. Okay? And most colleges are going to recalculate, most of the colleges in the States recalculate in that course. So they'll look at your academic record and only look at those 5 areas: math, science, English, social studies, and world language, pull the grades out, throw it into a 4.0 scale, A being a 4, B being a 3, C being a 2, D being a 1, F being a 0, recalculating their GPA in the core only. A lot of colleges do that. They don't care what your system is. They're recalculating the core so that they have a system that's similar for everybody across, all schools. Make sense? Okay? So, obviously, we're also going to look at non-academic factors such as personal characteristics, individual experiences, as important and positive for the campus community, special talents, and institutional priorities. Okay? Now, you'll notice what's missing in Red Brick's review considerations. What's missing? Test scores. Okay? Red Brick's test optional. Okay? So supposedly their philosophy is that we will take kids' transcripts and we will look at kids without having them submit SAT scores, which is a good thing because there's a lot of kids out here that are not great test takers, that are still great kids. And don't define yourself by a test score. Don't define yourself by an ACT score and SAT score. By the way, you have to take the SAT or ACT or both if you're going to go to school in the States. Know that right now. Okay? So, but Red Brick is test optional, meaning they're one of the several hundred schools which advertise that you don't have to submit your scores. So if test scores are optional at Red Brick, who are the kids that are sending scores to them? The kids with what? Good scores. The kids with bad scores are not what? They're not submitting the scores. Well, the Red Brick admissions people know this too. Okay, obviously, all right? But that's part of their institutional priority, and by the way, it boosts Red Brick's ranking because their mean SAT scores at Red Brick will go up 100 points. And colleges rank themselves based upon their SAT means of incoming freshmen. So it's a real, ingenious or insidious way for a school to boost their ranking by SAT scores. Okay? Special talents, okay? Institutional priorities, okay? Institutional priorities, special talents is obvious whether or not you're great at something. I mean, really great, not just good, you're great, okay? Music, art, athletics. Institutional priorities change, okay? And they change by what the college needs that year, okay? So the admissions department, what they do is they go out to the directors or the deans of all the different schools within their university and they say, hey, what do you need next year? And they develop a list of their institutional priorities. Hey, we're short on, chemical engineers, so we're going to take a few more this year. We have too many of these, so we're not taking any more of them, okay? Institutional priorities shift, and it drives parents crazy because they've been talking to their friends in the grocery store line saying, hey, my kid's got these test scores and these grades, and I know so-and-so got in with lower grades. My kid's a lock. Well, guess what? Your kid's not a lock, okay? You have no idea what that other kid had going for him besides the grades and test scores, and that kid might have filled the need already, and your kid could be out. Drive you crazy. Oh, it's not fair. There's nothing fair about admissions, okay? Great kids are routinely rejected, okay? Again, I told you I read at Princeton. Last year, Princeton rejected, flat out rejected, over 50% of the applicants with perfect SAT scores. They flat out rejected over 50% of the kids that were valedictorian and salutatorians of their class. Okay? Next slide, please. Okay, so when we're looking at academic performance, okay, at Red Brick, the typical incoming student mean has a GPA of 3.25 to 3.8. They have a composite ACT of a 29, and they have a SAT combined mean 1920 to 1970. Now, those are pretty good scores. They're not off the chart scores like Harvard and Caltech and Princeton, but they're good scores, okay? You hit 30 in the ACT, you're in rarefied air. Okay, you get over 700 in the SATs, you're in rarefied air. Okay? You go to the elite schools, they're looking for 750 and above in each of the scores, critical reading, math, and writing. But this is Red Brick. Next slide, please. Okay? And then they're going to look, after they look at the academics, they're going to look at the personal assessment. Is the kid an active participant? Is the kid involved? Okay? Is the kid demonstrating commitment? You'll hear that over and over again. Involvement, demonstrating commitment. In other words, don't be a joiner. Okay? College admissions officers use this all the time. The thicker the file, the thicker the student. Okay? In other words, they've been just joining a bunch of nonsense that they're not involved with, can show no depth and no excellence in. And I've seen applications, and they ask you, this cracks me up, how many hours a week do you work on community service? And the kids will put down some ungodly amount of hours. And then somewhere else, I also, play this sport, and I also, do all this other stuff. And the admissions officer knows, well, that's impossible. Okay? Are you kidding me? There's not enough hours in the day. They don't like joiners. They like people that show sustained commitment. Sustained. You did something for a long time. You're passionate with it. Okay? Should I tell the Rubik's Cube story? A true story with the kid I used to work with. I told the kids this morning this story, and it's relevant to this. So I had a client that thought he was a real nothing. In other words, I have nothing to offer. I have nothing to give. I have no redeeming qualities. What the heck am I going to put in my application? So you ask the kid, what are you good at? I'm good at nothing, is the response. Like, hard to market that. Okay? So you dig a little deeper and you find out the kid loves it. The kid's always carrying around a Rubik's Cube. Were you any good at the Rubik's Cube? Yeah, I'm pretty good. Pretty good? The kid was awesome. Okay? I don't know what awesome means in Rubik's Cube, but this kid was awesome. Okay? So is that your passion? Yeah, I really like to play with the Rubik's Cube. I'm good at it. Okay? And whenever he does it, he impresses people. Certainly can impress me. Somebody could do that, okay? And so the kid went down to the middle school and taught the younger kids in the middle school what the heck a Rubik's Cube was and formed a Rubik's Cube club. And then after he formed the Rubik's Cube club, he decided to take it one step further because it got a little popular with all the geeky little kids that were into Rubik's Cube, okay? He took it one step further and he said, okay, let's have a Rubik's Cube competition. So he had a competition, okay? And then the competition took off, and he had another competition he opened up outside of the school. And then he charged a entry fee for the competition. And then he donated all the entry fees to charity. The kid got accepted everywhere. Had no school activities. Okay? But that kid had what? Commitment, passion, willingness to be philanthropic. Was obviously not one of the same types of kid as every stinking other kid that was applying that looked like every other kid. All these other kids looked exactly the same. Chess club, president of the science club, blah, 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 National Honor Society. Rubik's Cube. Pretty cool, okay? Leadership is big, okay? So if you can show leadership, and that doesn't mean popularity leadership, oh my God, I was president of my senior class. Well, that's great if you're president of the senior class and you did something with it. If you're president of the senior class and did nothing with it, they'll just assume it was a popularity contest, okay? So you don't have to be an officer to show leadership, okay? Leadership is significant in many ways. Okay, the others are all overcoming adversity, demonstrating persistence, yada, yada. Okay? Next, please. We already talked about this. Okay? So, our first candidate. You guys take a look at this real quick. Michelle Gregory. Kids from BC, applying to Red Brick in the Northeast. Advantage or disadvantage? Yes? No? Hello? Advantage or disadvantage? Why? Okay, international student meaning the acceptance, and it's a good point. In general, okay, you look at a 35% acceptance rate, the acceptance rate for international kids is going to be what? Much lower. However, it's an advantage because of what? Two reasons. Kids from BC, not too many kids from BC are going to the Northeast, United States schools, and number two, the kid is obviously going to be a full pay kid. Full pay being what? You're not getting any aid. You're paying full freight. And when you're paying full freight, you are a little bit more attractive to Red Brick than a normal kid. Okay? Michelle has got a 3.74 weighted GPA. Good, bad? It's pretty good. Okay? Pretty close to a 4.0. 4.0 would mean he's straight A's. Kid took 7 APs, 21 core courses, the SAT scores you can see in the mid-6s. Took 2 SAT 2s, 600 and 570. 570 probably would stick out a little bit. Kid's a neuroscience major. Is that good, bad, or indifferent? It's good, but it's good because what? Red Brick is known for neuroscience, but it means also what? And you got to think about this. Since they're known for neuroscience, great kids are going to Red Brick for what? Neuroscience. Now I want you to think about this. You might want to jot this note down. This kid isn't cream of the crop, is she? She's good. She's really solid, but she's not cream of the crop. And she wants to major in neuroscience. I'd probably recommend to her to apply undeclared. It's a crapshoot, but that's probably what I would recommend. Why? Because this kid's going to be competing against rock star neuroscience majors. You with me? Food for thought. Okay, kids from a private school, just like St. George's, 85% of the kids at that private school go off into a 4-year school. I'm sure St. George's is 100%, right? Okay. Now here's a biggie. The kid is being recruited, meaning Red Brick is recruiting this kid as a swimmer. The swim coach wants this kid. How big is that? Bigger than big. But it's a D3 school, meaning they don't what? No money. Then why is it so big? Yeah. If, and again, here's the big if. Okay, even at the D3s, and you need to know this little trick about U.S. admissions too. The swim coach at Red Brick gets what I call X amount of slots. Okay, so let's say at Red Brick, the admissions office gives the swim coach 5 slots, meaning you get 5 kids of your choice. I don't care how bad they are academically. Coach, you get 5 kids, and we'll admit them. 5 and only 5. Well, at Red Brick, this kid's being recruited, and she's pretty solid academically. Coach gets 5 slots. Is coach only recruiting 5 kids? No. Coach has got a lot more kids than 5 on the recruiting list. Okay? And she might be number 10 on his depth chart. Is he going to waste a slot on her? Maybe not. So it might not be, it's going to be big, going to be really big if he's going to use a slot. If he uses a slot, she's in. Done. End of discussion. Okay? Essay about dad diving. Okay? And I hate to bring up, something as tragic as that. But, okay, overcoming adversity and willingness to write about it and open up your heart will play. Okay, the kid has really good recommendations. Even though the kid's from BC, mom is from the United States, and mom's a Red Brick alum. That's called legacy. Okay, is that big? Very big. It's not big because mom is donating money. It's big because legacies, mom wants Michelle to go where? Red Brick. Putting pressure on Michelle to go to Red Brick. Okay? And the university knows that legacies put pressure on their kids to go to the same universities. Therefore, they think if I offer her, she'll what? She'll come. So the yield is really good for legacies. And since the yield's so good for legacies, they offer those kids. Does that make sense? So think about it then. So we got Michelle here. You're on the Red Brick Admissions Committee. What would you do? Think about that. Let's look at the next one. We got Juan. Okay, Juan's an Hispanic from California. He's got a 3.5 weighted GPA. Okay? No APs in this particular school, but has 10 honors classes, so his rigor's pretty good. 18 core courses. What's his SATs like? Really good. Really good. So 2 big things in this kid's favor right off the bat are what? He's what? He's Hispanic, and he's Hispanic with awesome scores. Okay? His SAT2s are awesome also. He's an undecided major, good, bad, or indifferent. Does that make anything? Mean anything? Actually, it could be an advantage. Okay? He checked no to the financial aid box. The kid's a what? Kid's a full-pay kid, too. Okay? All his recommendations indicate that he's a natural leader. Okay? His essay is about wanting to become an engineer. Is that good or bad? What kind of school is he applying to? He's applying to Red Brick. Red Brick doesn't have engineering. And this kid wrote an essay about what? About wanting to be an engineer, which means he cut and pasted this essay from what? from another school that he was applying to, which was an engineering school. So he's telling Red Brick that Red Brick is my what? Safety school. He is now going to be what? He's done. This kid is awesome. And he'll probably get what? He'll probably get rejected because of that read that I did about his essay. Does that make sense? I've seen it happen 1,000 times. President of the Catholic Youth and Young Republicans. That'll be the second knock. Why? This is a really liberal school. Did you look at all about what kind of school you were applying to? Okay? Class president and VP. This kid is great, and he's going to get what? Rejected. Okay? Next. Stephen Markovitz. He's from Ohio, 3.56 weighted GPA, 4 APs, 20 core courses. Will that 4 APs help or hurt? Well, how many courses does the school he goes to, how many AP courses do they offer? That's the reason I bring that up. Because every high school sends a school profile, and they say, oh man, we're an AP school and we have this many AP courses. Okay, so you took 4 APs, meaning your rigor's pretty good, but the first question the cynical admissions officer will do is they'll look at the profile and say, well, how many AP courses did your school offer? Why the heck are you only taking 4? Okay? Kid has no SAT 2s. Okay? However, his SATs are what? Average, above average, slightly above average in math, average in reading and writing, ACT about average, but the kid is nationally ranked violinist. And Red Brick is known as having what? An awesome music conservatory. Okay? He also visited Red Brick and attended the Red Brick Music Camp. Red Brick Music Camp was probably run by the what? Red Brick music directors. This kid is applying to Red Brick probably because he was told by what? That music director that we want you. Okay? The kid was chairman of the LGBT Alliance. Kid went to Israel. Kid is mature. Okay? Kid is obviously liberal. He wrote an essay about shoes. People laugh about that. Okay? That was a good thing because admissions officers are so sick of hearing the same essay over and over again. Most common essay, sports is a metaphor for life. At least this kid wrote about something that actually wasn't being heard 1,000 times before. He studied 4 years of Hebrew at the University of Cincinnati, which means he can do college-level work, right? Okay? And had an interview with an alum. What do you think the odds of this kid getting in is? Okay? We had a kid before get probably rejected with almost perfect SATs. We got this kid that's got average SATs in what? I think he's got a better shot. Now, you as the parent, if this kid got in and Juan got rejected and Juan was your kid, you'd be what? You'd be ballistic. You wouldn't get it. You wouldn't understand it. And that's why I'm trying to teach you this, that that's how the game is played. Okay? Make sense? Okay? Next. And we got Christina from Connecticut. Okay? Connecticut really close to what? Massachusetts. I would say that there's probably a lot of kids from Christina's high school that are going to be applying to where? Red Brick. Not a good thing. She's not thinking outside of the box. She's staying close to home. As a matter of fact, most of the kids that I counsel over the years, the parents always come to me and say, Mr. Prutow, quit the out-of-the-box stuff, would you please? We're going to put a pin in the map, and it's got to be within a 6-hour radius I'm not letting my kid get too far from me. Very common. I get it. I'm a parent. I love my kids to death, okay? But the diversity card is just too strong a factor. I sent one kid to Oklahoma and one kid to Canada, okay? And I was living in Pennsylvania, so. And I was there all the time. 3 APs, 21 core courses, a little bit above average SATs, a little bit above average in the SAT 2s, another private school with 98% kids going off to 4-year school, was a SAD co-founder, that's Students Against Drunk Driving, okay? Most improved in lacrosse, assisted with battered women at a battered women's shelter. Those are all things that play at Red Brick, okay? Particularly this good liberal looking at community service school was the class rep. The kid worked, is working, and good or bad? It's good, okay? Essay about Thanksgiving and being of a mixed race, okay? Visited campus twice. Why is that important? Demonstrated interest, okay? Just so you know, demonstration of interest is a big factor in the United States these days. So let's say you're applying to a school that you can't get to. That's okay. There's many ways to show demonstration of interest. Okay, you can go onto the website, you can log in, you can do the virtual tour, you can go to the regional fairs around here. There's going to be a national fair in Vancouver in May. You go up to the reps there, you fill out the stupid card. Okay, you email the admissions rep that's in charge of your area. So there's many different things that you can do. Okay? And met with the Associate Dean of Admissions. So then we got Christina, okay? Pretty solid kid. Okay, what will you do with her? This kid could be your daughter. This is a solid kid. This is a good, solid kid that's done meaningful stuff, okay? And it's going to break your heart to know that what? This kid's going to get rejected to Red Brick? You know what I'm saying? That kind of stuff is gut-wrenching. You know, as a parent, as a person in admissions counseling, stuff like that always happens. So just know that great kids get accepted somewhere, great kids get rejected somewhere, okay? You just got to make sure you build your list appropriately. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so we're gonna shift goals right now. Was that helpful, by the way? And if I'm boring you to tears, tell me. Okay? So now I'm going to go into this litany of stuff, this PowerPoint that I put together when I go speak. And you have to understand that the United States, there's this wonderful thing called the U.S. News and World Report. Anybody ever heard of it? U.S. News and World Report is a magazine that comes out yearly that ranks colleges in the United States. And I hate even telling you that it exists because it's the bane of my existence, okay? But people go to schools based upon their reputation, not based upon fit, and it drives me nuts. And where do they get, in the States, where do people get their reputation from? They get it by the rankings. And the number one most important or popular ranking in the States is U.S. News and World Report Best Colleges. Comes out every year. And I have seen people, directors of admissions that are dear friends of mine, fired if they lower themselves 2 spots in U.S. News and World Reports. Okay? And they get fired because if you lower yourself in your ranking, guess what happens to your application volume? Your volume doesn't go up, and therefore your acceptance rate doesn't go down. So what I'm going to ask you to do is not worry so much about what type of sticker you put on the back of your car. Worry more about what's the best fit for your kid. Where will your kid be most successful? Next slide, please. Okay? You can keep going. Keep going. I talked about this. I'm going to go through slides quick because I never will get through this presentation. Okay. So we know that what defines elite to people is the reputation, the acceptance rate, and whether or not it's a selective school. And these slides are all in your packet, okay? The selectivity is simply defined as a school that rejects more kids than accepts. In other words, an acceptance rate below 50%, okay? And what U.S. News and World Report is they calculate all this stuff, and they look at your selectivity, your acceptance rate, and then they also look at the quality of the kid that you're admitting, meaning SAT means, percentage of kids from the top 10% of the class, and then they factor in graduation rates, and they factor in reputation. And one of the things I love about the U.S. News and World Report rankings is they'll send Stanford Director of Admissions a survey saying, rank these schools based on your feeling of their reputation, okay? And they'll send the same survey to all the other schools. So if you want to affect your own school's ranking, what will you do? If you're Harvard and you're losing to Princeton the last 2 years, which you've done, move Princeton down to 5 next year. I mean, that's how ludicrous it is. Next, please. Okay? So again, most people think that that selectivity, when we did that red brick thing, you thought 35% selectivity was not a selective school. It's a very selective school. Okay? And you can look at the number of colleges in the United States based on selectivity. Okay? And the bands are 12.5%, then 25%, 50%, 75%, and then anything over 75%. Okay? And you'll see that the schools that have over 75% acceptance rates are the vast majority, 751 of them. Over 75% acceptance rate. Okay? And there are great schools out there with over 75% acceptance rates. Okay? Next, please. We've talked about this. Okay? Now, here's some examples of competitive college with an acceptance rate over 50%. Okay? I talked to you about Syracuse. There's DePaul University in Indiana. There's Michigan State University in Michigan, 70.6%. And you got the University of Colorado in Boulder with 83%. I could have thrown University of Kansas up there with over 90% acceptance rate. All great schools. You cannot define a school by its acceptance rate. That's why you got to be careful with U.S. News and Report and those rankings, who are so biased towards acceptance rates. You think to yourself, well, if University of Colorado Boulder has an 83% acceptance rate, it must be for dummies. No. It just means that they're accepting a lot of their in-state kids. Okay? And just because they're accepting a lot of kids, it doesn't mean that those kids aren't qualified. Okay? University of Colorado Boulder is gorgeous, by the way. I mean, anybody ever been there? Right under the Flatirons in Boulder, Colorado. It's just a staggeringly beautiful school. It's a great school. Okay? Next, please. Okay? Very competitive colleges. Acceptance rates 36 to 50%. So now we're ratcheting it up again. A couple of schools you probably wouldn't realize that. NC State in Raleigh, 50% acceptance rate. Rensselaer, 37%. Next, please. Then you got the highly competitives. Boston College, Grinnell, University of Florida, University of Virginia, Wake Forest University. Look at their acceptance rates. But let me warn you about the fourth bullet. Okay? University of Virginia has a 28.9% acceptance rate. The reason it's that high is because they have to accept mostly what? Kids from Virginia. It's a publicly funded university by the state of Virginia, so Virginians go. But if you want to go to UVA, if one of you kids want to go to UVA, it's going to be harder for you to get into UVA than it is to Harvard. Only 600 kids out of state or international get accepted to Harvard or UVA every year. 600, that's it. Okay? So the difficulty of UVA is staggering. And people wouldn't look at it because they say, I got a 1 in 4 chance. Okay, next. Extremely competitive. Carleton, Georgetown, Kenyon, Tufts, USC, Notre Dame. Now we're getting into the theater of the absurd ranges. Okay, next. Now we're getting into the absolute absurd range. Okay? All these schools under 10%, meaning they're routinely rejecting awesome kids. Next, please. Okay? So just know that, if your list of schools, and you're applying to the schools in the States, if your list is all the elites, you're playing a dangerous game, even if you have great kids. Okay? Make sure your list is appropriate and that you have some schools that you are reasonably sure that you'll be accepted to. Next, please. Talking about application volume, okay? UCLA leads the nation, I guess it probably leads the world in application volume. 86,500 applications last year, twice as many as in 2005. So just in 10 years, they've doubled their application volume. Okay? Which has driven down their what? Acceptance rate. Okay? Now their acceptance rate is below 20%. Next, please. I love this. Please read it. I won't read it to you. Bill Fitzsimmons is the director of admissions at Harvard University. This was a letter from a student. I love this. I love it because the kid had some gumption. I'd probably use a different adjective with a different audience. But, and realized and knew that it was absurd. The kid applied to Harvard. The kid got rejected. Was one out of the 95 rejects out of the 100 that applied. Okay, great kid, and got rejected. And didn't take it as a slap at her self-worth. I love it. Now, when Fitzsimmons got this, he would have accepted her on the spot. But he didn't. Next, please. Okay, you know this. So if you're denied at a highly elite school, there's nothing wrong. There is nothing wrong with your kid. Okay, next. Okay, now, and I'm going to go through these slides real quick, these next several slides, but I just want to tell you that statistics indicate that you can be great and not have gone to, quote unquote, a name or elite school. Okay? Smart Money has done, studies. Forbes magazine has done studies. Money magazine has done studies. And they all indicate that other schools offer a better payback than some of the Ivies. So, for example, Texas A&M delivers a payback more than 2.5 times out of Harvard, Delaware, University of Delaware. By the way, my alma mater, okay? I'm a fighting blue hen, one of the most bizarre mascots. Fighting blue hens, yes, that's true, okay? But the most bizarre mascot, I think, in the country is UC Santa Cruz's. You know what that is? Banana slug. You got it. My favorite mascot in the country, okay? The banana slugs. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, the Brookings Institute, as a matter of fact, did a study just last year measuring graduation rates and market value. In other words, kind of job you landed and the salary you got in the job, not just working at Starbucks or the admissions department. And they ranked the top 20 on college quality of their graduates. Different study. Now, some of the schools in black, obviously, are some of the standard elites, okay? Caltech, Colgate, MIT, Stanford, Rice, Georgia Tech. But some of the ones in red, the ones I put in red, many of you probably never even heard of, which is pretty cool. The point being, there's a lot of great schools out there, great schools that are producing great people doing great things, okay? And another reason I love that list is you'll notice out of that top 20 that the Brookings Institute did, there's not one what? There's not one Ivy on the top 20. Next, please. And do yourself a favor. I told your sons and daughters this. Or sons and daughters. Why am I saying daughters at an all-boys school? Okay. I told your sons this today. Google this if you want to watch a pretty cool little YouTube video. Just Google Malcolm Gladwell, Zeitgeist Americas. Okay, and he did this speech to Google America in 2013, which I loved. Okay, and his whole point was that there's this thing that exists, which he called, his acronym was EICD, Elite Institution Cognitive Disorder, meaning we have this unbelievable bias towards name elite schools. So he did his own study, and he found that if you finish in the bottom half of the class at Harvard, now granted, you're going to Harvard, right? But if you finish in the bottom half of the class at Harvard, you do not perform postgraduate anywhere near the kids that are graduating the top of their class at Podunk U or any U. Because that kid that's finishing in the top of their class at Podunk University feels what? They feel great about themselves. They can conquer the world. The kid that's at the bottom half of the class at Harvard, it feels like they're a what? A failure. And they act like it. And he proved it. They don't chase degrees. They don't chase graduate programs. They don't chase high-performing jobs. Whereas the kids that were top of the class at Podunk University were world beaters. And I'm going to brag about my daughter because I did this morning, and it kind of ties in with this story. By the way, my oldest daughter went to McGill, just so you know. Okay? I took my kid and brought her to Canada. Canada has great schools, by the way, and you guys all know that. I'm talking about the US, but there's great options here, folks, for a lot less money. Okay? But I sent my youngest daughter to Oklahoma State University in Stillwater, Oklahoma. Now, I'm the college counseling guru. I'm speaking to you people on college admissions, okay? And I sent my kid to Oklahoma State, and you know where Oklahoma State is ranked in the U.S. News and World Report top colleges? Not even in the top 100, okay? So why the heck am I sending my kid to Oklahoma State? Well, sports was a factor. Good point. It was the best fit for her. And I am so thankful it happened. And I was pretty leery about it, to be perfectly honest with you, because she got accepted to some big-time elite schools, okay? But we went out to Stillwater, Oklahoma, and visited, and I said, wow, you know, this place is gorgeous. And it was. Beautiful buildings, beautiful campus, great professors. And she got accepted to the Honors College at Oklahoma State. Now understand this, of the public universities in the United States, they have these things called honors colleges within a college, okay? Penn State has the Schreier's Honors College within Penn State University, okay? Smaller classes, being taught by the professor instead of a TA, priority enrollment, graduate with an honors diploma, okay? Well, she got accepted to Oklahoma State Honors, and she was this. She was Malcolm Gladwell's story to a T. She became great at Oklahoma State. And I never saw a kid, and I get goosebumps talking about it. She blossomed before my eyes. She became a leader. She became confident. She could conquer the world. She was president of the Honor Society, president of the NCAA Council, captain of her team. You know, ended up being selected as the senior of significance at Oklahoma State University in her graduation year. Graduated a 4.0. And she had her pick of graduate schools. Any grad school she wanted to go to in the country. Okay? And I think to myself, thank God she didn't go to Duke or to Emory as an undergrad, because I know what? It wouldn't have happened. Maybe it would, but the odds, but it happened for her. It was so cool. It was just awesome. So I'm a big Cowboy fan now. Okay? Go Pokes. Okay? Next. And that's all this talks about. We're going to blow through these slides now. Keep going. Okay, so keep in perspective. Okay? Helicopter parents. Okay? Some of you are going to be helicopter parents. What that means is you're going to try and hover and take control of the whole admissions process, edit the essays, call admissions, badger the admissions department, on and on and on. Okay? You have a nickname in admissions departments as a helicopter parent. You are a negative. You will hurt your kid's chances. Let your kid take responsibility. And even if you are a helicopter parent, you better disguise it in such a way that it looks like it's the kid. Okay? Meaning the language you're using, et cetera, et cetera. Okay? And don't be a Black Hawk parent. Higher level attack helicopter. Okay. Next, please. Okay, so we know what colleges look for. So we did this in Red Brick. Challenging curriculum, grades that represent a strong effort and an upward trend. Now remember, in the States, unlike Canada, they look at all 4 years of your high school. All 4 years count. 9, 10, 11, and 12. Okay? All the grades, all the courses count are calculated into your GPA, and they're looking for an upward trend. So if you'd had a bad 9th grade year, you can compensate for it with an upward trend. Better to have all 4 great years, but don't have a downward trend. Okay? All 4 years count. Next. We talked about the academic litmus test. In other words, if you don't have the grades and rigor in the test scores, you're not going any further in selective school admissions. Okay? And just like this Wesleyan director told me point blank, this was a quote from the Wesleyan director of admissions. Why bother to look at the 3.4s and the 600s when you can get everything you need from the 3.7s and the 700s? Why should we bother? So they don't. It drives you crazy. Next. Okay? Your performance against your peers matters. And I told the kids this, and I hate to increase a competitive environment because I don't think it's healthy. But you need to know that even if you're a no-rank school, in other words, you don't calculate class rank, the colleges will do it for you. They'll try and analyze your profile and your grade distributions and figure out where the kid stands within his peers within his class. Okay? And if you're in the top of your class, you're going to have a lot higher chance than if you're in the second decile. And again, the reason being is that the U.S. News and World Report ranks themselves by the percentage of kids that are accepted from the top 10% of your class. So even if you're in the 11th percentile, your odds just went down. Stupid stuff, crazy stuff, but just how it works. Next. We just said that. Okay, we've said that. Rigor, rigor, rigor. Keep going. Okay, we've talked about test scores a little bit, but just know in the States, okay? You got to take the ACT or the SAT, okay? I recommend that you take the ACT and the SAT second half of your junior year. You're going to have to look and see if the schools that you're applying to require SAT 2s. Now, I'm not trying to confuse you, but there's the SAT, and then there's the SAT 2s, which are subject tests. Some colleges and universities require SAT 2s. And that SAT, usually 2. Georgetown requires 3, but they're rare. Okay? And usually among those 2 SAT 2s, one of them should be math level 1 or 2, and whatever you're great at. And pick something you're great at. Okay? And you should probably do that in May or June of your junior year, your 11th grade year, because you're probably going to be applying to some schools early in your senior year, and you won't have the scores in time. Does that make sense? Okay, so keep that in the back of your mind. Next, please. And you're also fortunate or unfortunate to be involved in the transition to the new SAT. That's why a lot of students in the States are just saying, I'm taking the ACT. I'm not going to deal with this nonsense. But the SAT is being redesigned. The new SAT will be offered for the first time this March. Okay? Old SAT, last administration this January. So I told last year's sophomores, take the January and the March and see what happens. Because they're going to be different tests. Hard to prep for the new SAT because we don't know what the heck it's going to really be like, but it is what it is. And what the colleges will do is they'll have a concordance table. And you can Google that too. It's not up yet. But if you Google concordance table right now, you'll get a concordance table from the ACT to the SAT. How to compare an SAT score to an ACT score. What a 29 means in SAT language. What a 2140 means in ACT language. And that's what the college admissions departments use. They use that concordance table. If you do better on the ACT, don't send your SATs. Send your ACT, or vice versa. But they're also going to have a concordance table which you people will be dealing with old SAT to new SAT. So it's going to drive you a little crazy. Okay? Next, please. And this is just a slide about what the new SAT is all about. But you can go to the College Board website and really bore yourself to tears and learn all about the new SAT. Okay? Next, please. So we talk about test scores. These are absurd test scores in my mind. Okay? Caltech 2300 mean. That's their mean. Hello? Okay? UVA is 2040. That looks low compared to Caltech, Princeton, and Tufts, but remember what I said about UVA. Those mean scores are for what? All kids. Look at the out-of-state profile. It's going to be higher in Caltech's. Okay? Next, please. Now I say what we call, instead of rare error, look at reasonable error. Look at University of Kansas, 92% acceptance rate, ACT of 22 to 28, they're mean. I can go to a beautiful school in Lawrence, Kansas, get a great education, and just be a normal kid. And still go to a great school and get a great education. It's okay. Most people think Purdue has a lot lower acceptance rate. Purdue is one of the leading engineering schools in the United States. Okay? They have a 61% acceptance rate. Next, please. Now, I talked to you also about schools that were not holistic. Red Brick was holistic. Penn State isn't. This is the actual Penn State admissions chart. What are they using? Two things. GPA and what? Test score. In or out. Done. Move on. Okay? Next, please. And we've talked about this. That was the Yale story about PSAT soliciting more volume. Keep going. Okay? This is also a story about Georgetown doing the exact same thing, buying names. So by the way, just so you know, how many of your sons and daughters took the PSAT? Do you guys give that here? Yeah, so most of you probably did. Well, kids, they check the box. The College Board is devious about this. On the PSAT administration, there's a box that says, do you want us to share your scores with colleges and universities? Well, of course, everybody does what? They check the box. That's why I'm taking a stupid test. But that also is giving the College Board the right to sell lists to all the colleges and universities of your demographic information just so they can send you mailings. Okay? Next, please. And you'll debate whether or not to take the ACT or the SAT. A lot of kids do both. But there is information, and it's on one of the slides, about supposedly what test is better with what type of kid, and that's what the slide's all about. But I can tell you it's not foolproof. I thought my girls would do better with the ACT just because of what the lingo said. Both my girls were much better with the ACT or SAT than the ACT. So it's up to individuals, but I can tell you for a fact, I had a kid that was accepted in Northwestern last year that bombed, got 600s in the SAT, but got a 34 in the ACT. So that's pretty hugely significant difference. So she got in Northwestern with that 34. Next, please. And we've talked about the fact that there are test optional schools. If you want a list of the test optional schools, they're all at fairtest.org. Every school is listed right there, and it's updated. So if you want to know which schools are test optional, and if you have bad SAT scores but are good grades, you should consider it, or at least have some test optional schools on your list. Next, please. We've talked about that. Okay. We've talked about this too, passionate involvement. I can't stress this enough. The Rubik's Cube kid, passionate involvement sustained over a period of time. Next, please. Okay. And I don't know if I have this slide, but I used this example with the 10th and 11th graders today, and it's a true story. If an admissions officer sees a kid that lists on their application that they went to dig latrines in El Salvador in the summer after their junior year, would that be a positive or a negative? Well, it's a negative in that case because it's the only time a kid did something of this nature. So the cynical college admissions officer says, this kid went to El Salvador for Habitat of Humanity just for what? For their college admissions resume. Has shown no other incidents of that type of behavior any other time. So you got to be careful with that. Okay? Next, please. Grit. Now, how the heck do you define grit? Colleges are struggling with this. They're actually trying to come up with grit scales. But grit is all about diligence, goal completion, and dealing with setbacks. Okay? Passion and involvement. Okay? And they really try and dig for this information in the essay, particularly the holistic schools. The essay is really important for the holistic schools. The teacher recommendations are really important for the holistic schools. Tell your kids to pick teachers for their teacher recs that like them. Okay? Because you are going to do what you must do, and you guys are Naviance school, right? You're going to waive your right to see the teacher rec. Now, you're going to hate to do it. You're going to hate to check the box. Okay? I don't want to waive my rights to nothing. I want to be able to see that teacher rec. I'm telling you right now, waive your right to review recommendations. If you do not waive your right to review recommendations, the college will know that you did not waive your right, and the recommendations will be totally what? Meaningless. They will not be counted. You will be asked to waive your right, waive your right. You will not get to review the recommendations. Pick teachers that love you. Okay, next. Which led me right into that. We talked about special talents. We talked about the essay. Work and experiences show dedication and responsibility. These are all holistic things. Demonstrated intellectual curiosity. How the heck they measure that? They dig. They try to figure out whether or not you're real or not. You know, if your essay is, you know, we kid about, we played a game with your sons and daughters today about, you know, essay editing. If the essay looks like it's been written by a middle-aged, you know, me, okay, they're going to know it's edited. The essay should sound like it's a kid's essay because they're a kid, okay? So be careful with what you do. It doesn't mean they can't be smart and use words, but I read so many essays, I say, you're trying to sound so smart. Cut back on all these big words that you're digging out as a thesaurus and the internet finder. Please, sound like you would really talk. Okay? Next, please. Demonstration of interest, we talked about that a little bit, but just keep this in the back of your mind. All things being equal, the college will accept a kid they think will what? Come. Will accept the offer of admission. All things being equal, they want a kid that will accept that offer. If they don't think you're going to accept the offer, they're not going to offer you, just like poor Juan. Remember in Red Brick? Okay? They don't want a stealth applicant. A stealth applicant is that last-minute application that gets thrown in just because, oh my God, I got to throw it in just because I need a safety school, because I just got rejected, you know, to my ED school. I didn't apply anywhere else, so I'm in trouble. Okay? Show interest. Next, please. These are just more ways to show demonstration of interest. And you're going to have to, your kids are going to have to set up accounts. They're going to have to put email address. True story. I had a kid put their email address in to the college account, bluntforlife@gmail.com. I mean, what are you thinking? That kid getting in nowhere. Okay? Use a professional email address. First name dot last name @gmail.com. Okay? If you're using some stupid email like Beach Babe, okay, use it for what you want to use it for, but don't use it for your college. Okay? Next, please. Okay, this is all about demonstration of interest. You can read it in the packet. Keep going. Okay, yield. You just need to know that yield is huge with colleges because it'll keep your perspective when all the admissions nonsense starts getting hit home. Yield means the percentage of kids that actually enroll from that offered pool. Okay, so they offer X amount of kids acceptances. Of all those acceptances, a certain percentage of them will accept those and come to the school. Now, you have to understand that yield is probably the most critical thing in an admissions officer's life. Because if they don't hit if they misjudge the yield number, guess what? They don't have enough beds or dorm spaces or classroom spaces or teachers if they overshoot that number. Their budget goes right out the window, and the admissions office director gets fired for not hitting the yield target, okay? You know, they have to rent a hotel off campus to house the kids because they overshot their number, okay? Yield is really, really important, okay? They're trying to guess how many kids will actually accept offers of admission, okay? So that's why they routinely reject kids that they get an interpretation that the school is a safety school. So for example, on the college application, you're asked to list the schools, the other schools to which you are applying. Think about that for a second. Why the heck do they care? So you're listing to the other schools to which you're applying, and Tufts is notorious for this. So on the Tufts application, you list that you're also applying to Harvard. Well, Tufts now knows what? Tufts is what? Their safety school. You're going to get rejected to Tufts even if you're admittable to Harvard. Because they know that if they offer you, you're probably not what? You're probably not coming. Okay? Yield is critical. That's why I tell people you play the demonstration of interest game to try and convince them that you are going to come, even if you're not. So it's kind of devious on our side. So everybody's trying to figure out what everybody's going to do. Okay? Next. Yeah, and legacy is just a yield factor, by the way. It's not because you're a big donator. Legacy is all about yield, which we talked about in the red brick example. Next. Okay, we just talked about that. Oh, but the bottom one, yeah, which I just alluded to. You apply to a prestigious selected small liberal arts school. You list Harvard as a school to which you are applying, and you list that your dad was a graduate of Harvard. Good luck with that one. Okay, because that's also a question on the application, by the way. Where did your parents go to school? If you're a first-generation kid, you're great. You're gold standard. And of course, the ultimate demonstration of interest is ED. Now, why is the ultimate demonstration of interest ED? They know what? No, they know not only your interest, they know if they offer you, you're what? You're going. You can't get more demonstration of interest than that. That's the ultimate yield predictor. Therefore, and I hate saying this too, but this is a way to help play the game. They will dig deeper into the applicant pool. They will take less qualified candidates in the ED pool than they will in the regular pool. Because they know what? If they offer you, you are what? Going. I hate saying it because people use that as an admission strategy, and it should be an admission strategy, but only if you're willing to know that there can't be buyer's remorse. Oh yeah, I applied to ED, but I'm not going. You're going. Okay? And you're probably paying a lot more than you would have paid if you didn't. Because not only do they know that they got you, because they know they got you, they're not going to what? They're not going to give you as much aid, even if you're deserving of aid. Because they know they got you. Okay? And we talked about the other application options, ED, early action, restrictive early action, or single choice early action, yada, yada. Okay? There's also rolling admissions in the states. You'll see schools, when you look for application deadlines, you'll see some schools that have no deadline. You'll say, what's the deadline? There is no deadline. It's rolling admissions. So if there's no deadline, it means it's rolling admissions, meaning as soon as they fill their class, they're done. Therefore, if it's a rolling admission school, you should probably what? Apply early. Okay? Next, please. And we just talked about that. And you can see the early admission advantage at these elite schools, okay? Regular admissions rate versus the early admissions, early decision rates. The rates are significantly better. They're still ridiculously low, but they're still better. Next, please. Same thing with some of the elite liberal arts schools. You can see the admit rate for ED1, significantly higher. Next, please. Keep going. We just said that. We said that. We said that. Keep going. Okay, so I just wanted to show you an actual rating system, just so you know. I've had the great advantage of being able to see rating systems used by other schools. Now, this particular college and university used this rating system. It went 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. I couldn't fit it all on a slide, so I just showed you the 5s and the 4s. And what they do is they just added up points. This particular school looked at their transcripts, and they added points. Okay? And they said, and in any particular year, if you have this many points, you're in. If you have this many points, you're waitlisted. If you have this many points, you're out. And that's how it worked at this school. Strength of the high school, meaning you have an advantage. St. George's is well known as being an elite high school. So you'd get a 5 for that because you're attending a great high school, okay? Difficulty of curriculum, we've talked about all that. Students' performance grades, class rank, leadership recognition initiative, that stuff. Commitment, dedication, etc. We've talked about all that stuff, and they rank it. Now, the thing that you need to know is the class standing, the student's performance, the difficulty of curriculum, the strength of high school are all facts. They're all known. How are they, who's picking the 5s and the 4s in these last 2? The admissions person that's reading your app, that's reading your essays, that's reading your recommendations, they're making a determination what number you're getting there. And they're human beings. It's who they like, who they don't like. That number could vary. You could get knocked out because somebody interpreted your commitment and dedication different than another reader would have interpreted it. And just know that. It drives you crazy, but that's how it is. Next, please. This is University of Michigan. Okay? This is their actual chart. Same type of thing. Academic performance, educational environment, recommendations, personal background, evaluative measures such as depth of academic interest, evidence of academic passion, grasp of world events. Now, how the heck are they measuring this stuff? Okay? Extenuating circumstances. Have you overcome adversity? Do you speak more than one language, by the way, which is a huge advantage? Have you been affected by frequent moves and mobility that might have impeded upon your academic progress? Michigan is one of the few schools that actually state right up front, demonstrated interest. You go to a lot of colleges and you say, hey, does demonstrated interest matter? No. But we want kids that want to come. Next, please. This is Duke's. Okay? Rigor, grades, essay, test scores, letter of recommendation, extracurricular activities, personal qualities. And I love this quote from Gustav, who's the director of admissions at Duke. The typical Duke matriculant is a smart, very smart, talented, and engaged person. Next, please. And again, I talked to you the fact that colleges will vary by institutional priorities. So don't drive yourself nuts because institutional priorities change. The examples I gave your kids this morning was a bassoonist, okay? And you saw that in Red Brick. If you're a bassoonist and Red Brick wanted a bassoonist this year and you're a great bassoonist, that's an institutional priority for that school that year. So they'll dig into the applicant pool for a bassoonist. Well, you're a better bassoonist. So you apply to Red Brick the following year because you know you're a lock. Well, you're not going to get in because they already what? They got their bassoonist. Okay, 4 years later, maybe. Next. Okay? And this is, again, a quote from the Princeton University Director of Admissions. If I accidentally denied those we intended to admit and accidentally admitted a group on the cusp, there will be no noticeable change in the quality of our freshman class. And that's the truth. He was honest enough to actually state it. Okay? So that's kind of the gig. Christine, how long do you want me to go? You people tell me. I can ramble forever, but when the majority of you want me to go Q&A, I'll stop babbling and we'll go Q&A because I'll just go. And I never finish these things. So we'll be done by 9, like start Q&A in 5 minutes? It's up to you guys. You got the stuff there, but I apologize. Because I have never, ever finished a presentation. Oh well. Okay, so we'll go through 5 more minutes of slides and then we'll go Q&A. How's that? All right, here we go. So when you make your list, fit, 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 fit. but I know you're not going to do that. I know it. I've been in this game too long. So let me kind of like couch it a little bit better, and I'll say, please, think about fit when you're trying to get your kid into the best school that they can get into. Does that make sense? Don't make ludicrous decisions, and manage the list so at least it's a list that has some schools that are reasonably sure that you can get into, okay? And these are just factors you should consider. And a lot of people don't go in and look at campus safety, and and again, I have 2 daughters, and I look at that real closely. If you look at the campus safety stats, they're misleading because most of the crime occurs where? Off campus. Close to, but off campus. Does that make sense? So you got to look at the safety record of around campus. Like I love USC. I love Penn. I grew up, near Philly. Don't wander. Don't wander off of campus, okay? Next. We know, I've beaten the diversity, okay, thing to death. Let's keep going here. Majors. And I told your sons and daughters this is an actual chart, which is pretty cool. What you list as a major could have an impact. So, like, Syracuse has a 51.3% admissions rate, right? But if you apply to the communication school at Syracuse, it's less than a 10% admissions rate. Because that's what their thing is. Okay, so you got to be careful. So, at this esteemed liberal arts school, with a total class of 895, okay? This is an actual target class. You can see what their institutional priorities were for this particular year, okay? So were you better off applying for the 5-year engineering program or going engineering undecided? You were better off going undecided, okay? Matter of fact, you were better off going undeclared up top where 438 kids got in as opposed to the 5 kids that got in the geology department. And every school is different. Major matters. So usually what I say is applying undeclared is okay unless you're dead sure you know what you want to be with the rest of your life. Having said that, remember that 86% of the kids that go off to college change their major by the end of their sophomore year, have no clue. And even if they think they have a clue, they don't have a clue. Okay? But if you're dead sure you know what you want to do, then you better put it because that's what you want to be. So you don't want to go to a school where you can't do what you want to do. But otherwise, applying undeclared is okay. Then you can pick your major or transfer into the school of your choice. Next. I've talked about thinking outside of the box, so I won't beat that horse again. And so when you build your lists, and I'll leave this and then we'll go into Q&A. When you build your lists, it's okay to have a dream or a reach school or a school that is really difficult to get into. I'm not trying to say don't do it, do it. But do it understanding that if you get rejected, it's not a slap at your self-worth, and it's okay, because the odds are you are, even if you're awesome. So I warn parents, try to massage your sons so they don't have their hopes too high on one particular school. Tell them it's okay if they don't get in there. Think about this, you'll be awesome, and they will be. I've never had a kid that went to a safety school that didn't come home after they went to their safety school and say, man, I'm so happy here. That's how it happens. So when you build your list, and your list, let's say, is 10 schools or 12 schools, the final list where your sons are going to apply to, have a couple of reaches, have some schools that are realistic or aimed right at your probables. In other words, looking at their SAT and ACT scores and their GPAs and their acceptance rate, you think there's a reasonable chance that your kid will get in, and then have some safeties, meaning I meet their criteria 100%, okay? And I know of people that have gotten in that had lower criteria than me, and it's still a great school, and I'm going to be okay there. Build an appropriate list. I've had kids that got caught in April with all rejections because they shot for the stars on every single one of them, and they didn't believe anybody that said, hey, every school that you applied to has an acceptance rate below 10%. You applied to 10 schools, all 10 schools have acceptance rates below 10%. Well, in their strange thinking, they thought, well, 10 schools, 10% each. Hello? Okay, so don't get caught in that trap. Okay, Q&A time. Yes?
The budding athlete is looking for potential scholarship.
Yep.
At the same time, of course, looking for the ultimate academic fit.
Well, it depends on the division, okay? So what I will tell you is that most students and most parents are very unrealistic about their kids' ability, okay? And I'm not trying to say that because it's just the facts. And the way I look at it is use your athletic ability to help you get into that better school, okay? So whether it's a D1, a D2, or a D3 school, whether or not you're going to get money or not, and if you're fortunate enough, you're good enough, you're going to get money. If you're great, you're going to get money, okay? But that's rare. The way I look at it is use your athletic talent or your musical talent or your artistic talent to help you get into a better school, okay? And I do a whole presentation on this recruiting stuff and how to do that. But basically what you do is you go fishing, what I call go fishing, okay? You start reaching out through through different resources and try to get your kid recruited and see if there's interest generated. But it's a myth that interest is going to happen automatically. It doesn't happen for American kids. It's not going to happen for your kids here, okay? You usually have to generate the list unless you're an unbelievable superstar. The best kid I ever coached, I had to generate the interest, okay? So, but if you send me an email, I can give you some tips on all that stuff. Yes? No athletic scholarship, but there is merit money. The question was at Division III, there's no scholarship. There's merit scholarships. As a matter of fact, some of the Division III schools use merit aid and need-based aid. There's two types of aid, folks. Well, actually, there's three. But there's merit aid, meaning you're getting money because you're great at your grades. In other words, they want you because you're really good with your SATs and your grades, and they're giving you money because of that. And by the way, the lower you dip in the elitism of schools, the more likely you will get merit aid. Does that make sense? So if you're a rock star and you think you can get into Harvard, well, Harvard's going to give you no money, but you probably could have gotten a full ride at Texas A&M. You know what I'm saying? So the lower you go in the elite scale, the more chance of getting merit money. And then there's need-based money. International kids, most schools are not giving need-based money for international kids, but a lot of them are, okay? So need-based money is meaning, you know, they look at the amount of income that you're making, and they figure out how much you can pay for college. And the system that states uses in the free financial aid application is staggeringly absurd. What they think that you can afford to pay for college is amazing. And then there's athletic aid. Athletic aid meaning they're going to give you money just to play that sport.
Oh, the Division III?
But not in Division III. There's no athletic aid. But some of the more devious Division III schools will use merit aid and need-based aid to get an athlete.
Can I throw another question?
Yes.
How do I find out the institutional priorities every year?
You don't. The question is, how do you know the institutional priorities for that particular year? You don't.
How can we figure out from website or
You do not know.
It's supposed to be secret.
Yeah, I mean, basically what happens is, and I'm being honest with you, okay? Every year, right when they go into the admissions cycle, okay, the director of admissions and his admissions counselors will meet and sit down, and they'll establish the parameters for that year's admission cycle based on input they're getting from the deans of all the different colleges, the music directors, the sports, and they get all that information and say, what do you need? And it changes year to year. And you don't know. Yes?
Would the international students will be checking out the universities, the certain percentage about the international students for each university-wise?
The acceptance rates?
Yeah, for international students.
You won't find it.
Because
Yeah.
the college review, they sometimes list it.
Yeah, some schools will if you dig deep enough. But I can tell you for a fact it's lower than what the acceptance rate is. It's going to be lower than whatever the overall acceptance rate is. Whatever it is lower. Okay? But there are more schools accepting more international kids than ever before, even the UC schools. Okay? Because they're only allowed to take X amount of California kids that are funded by the state of California. Then once they meet that cap, then they want to take full pay kids. So like UC Irvine took, I think, 30% more international kids last year than ever before. So it depends. But the full pay aspect of it is huge. Yeah, and it never used to be like that. So, yep.
You mentioned that diversity is really important.
Yep.
In schools, like racial and technical diversity.
Yep.
And then how come the international acceptance rates tend to be a lot lower?
Now, the question is if you're looking for diversity, how come the international acceptance rates are so much lower? It's really pretty simple, because they're U.S. schools looking for U.S. kids, trying to serve that population, okay? And you have to remember that, okay, although that the international kid is going to be a full pay kid, okay, there's so many variables that they're unaware of with educational system, backgrounds, language, things of that nature, where if a school interprets that they have to put more services into a kid than they have, it ends up costing them money. Does that make sense? So they don't recruit there. They're worried about language. Like if you're an international kid that does not speak fluent English, okay, it's going to be a disadvantage. And you're going to have to take the TOEFL, which is a test of English as a foreign language, or a similar test to prove that you're able to even handle a U.S. system. Okay? There's a lot of factors, but it was a great question.
So Canadian kids have an advantage?
Canadian kids have what?
Advantage over other international students?
They have the advantage of being English speaking. Yes.
So does it hurt your chances if you indicate that you're going to apply for need-based aid? Does that hurt?
The question is it going to hurt your chances if you indicate that you're going to apply for need-based aid? Usually not. Okay? And the reason I say that is because usually they don't dig enough to look at that checkbox. They wait for the FAFSA. And what the FAFSA is it's a free financial aid application. So usually people check the box, and if they're going to be a full pay kid, they don't bother filling out the FAFSA and submitting the form, the actual application forms. So, but a lot of schools say they're need blind. A lot of those need blind schools are really need aware schools, meaning they're need blind until they need what? So they need full pay kids. So later, and believe it or not, later in the admission cycle, once all the aid dries up, and by the way, if you need aid, get your application in early. But once all the aid dries up, all they're looking for is full pay kids, period. Okay? Yes?
Could you share a little bit how to select with the summer program?
All right, well, the question is about summer programs. Be careful with this. Okay, and the reason I say be careful with selecting summer programs is because, again, colleges are cynical. Meaning, if you take a summer program, like the Brown summer program, the 6-week gig or the 1-week gig for $6,000, the summer after your junior year, thinking you're going to go there and get an advantage to get into Brown, you're out of your mind. You just wasted $6,000. It will not help. It will not help with admissions. The summer programs that colleges give are used to make money. Okay? And they also realize that if a kid is going to a summer program and can afford to go to a summer program just the summer after their junior year. They're doing it for the sole purpose of what? Trying to help their admission chances, and they're just a rich kid, spoiled rich kid. Stay home and work. But if you've done it over a sustained period of time, good. And also, and here's my caveat, and by the way, that's a broad generality. There's some great summer programs out there, so don't get me wrong. But if you're at one of the programs, like Georgetown has a really good program where they give you college credit, huge. Because what you are now doing is you're going into a summer program where you're doing college level work, getting college credit, and it's proving to the university that you can what? Handle college level work. Now that will pay off in spades. It's really good stuff. So broad generalities, I don't know if that helped or not, but my opinion. Yes?
Sorry, you missed your first 15 minutes of the presentation.
I'm sorry too. No.
I just want to know, is there a website where we can go to find out as to what is the list of the Division 4 and Division 3 universities?
Yep. It's real easy. You can just Google it. Google NCAA sports sponsorship. And you'll come up with a list. It'll actually give it, it'll give you a pull-down menu by sport. Yep. Yes, sir.
So we talked about the probably most important thing being the fit between the school and your child. How do you start to determine fit?
Yeah, that's a great question. How do you actually determine fit? I think if you can't visit the school, you just got to do a lot of research. I think visiting the school is the easiest way to do it, where you're not just doing the canned tour. You're visiting the campus during school time. You're getting out of the admissions tour, which is all marketing, and very often the admissions person that's taking you on the tour doesn't even know anything about their own school. You visit a class, you go to the dining hall, you just get a sense of the feel of the school. Like my oldest daughter, who ended up going to McGill, she grew up feeling that I'm going to be at Tar Heel, which is the University of North Carolina. I'm going to University of North Carolina. I said, why? Well, I love the colors. Okay, well, that's a great reason to go to school. But anyway, I took her on, trips with just me, even though she got some recruiting trips as an athlete, but we just went and visited schools. It was kind of like my last bonding experience with my kids. That's how I felt. I said, okay, we're not going to drag you around the country with me the summer after your junior year. We're going to just go look at schools. But she stepped on the McGill campus and talked to the people, and she was a risk taker, and she loved the ambiance, and she said, I want to be here, period. And that was the first school we visited. We visited probably 30 schools after that, and it was always going to be McGill. And thank God she got in, but she just knew. And, you do the virtual tours, you get a feel for what type of campus your kid wants. They want, like, some kids want to be able to go to big-time NCAA football games, for example, and experience the tailgates, which are huge in the States. It's just so much fun. As opposed to a small liberal arts school that didn't have a big-time D1 program. Kid's not a football player, but wanted that feel. You know what I'm saying? So you kind of get a feel for what your kid is like and what they like and what they're into, and then you try to narrow the list a little bit and then let them run with it and do some of the great search tools like Big Future. There's a website that the College Board runs called Big Future, which does a real good job with college searches. Okay? Naviance has a great college search tool. Your college counselors can give you advice. Dumb people like me will give you my opinion. But remember, I'm not the one going to school. And that's the trap that parents often fall into. Okay? Man, I love this school. Well, you're not going. Your kid's going. All right? Am I good? I've worn out my welcome?
No, you haven't worn like a welcome. I just know it's getting late.
Yeah.
I have to ask you, because I've seen so many of your presentations, if we were to let you continue, how long would we be here?
A long time.
It's true that David has never finished a presentation. So sorry.
But you have the rest of those slides, so,
For sure.
yeah.
Want to really thank you on behalf of all of us for such an engaging and honest and I guess informative would be an understatement, but very informative evening. I hope that you all walk away with some of your questions answered, perhaps more questions, but that's also a good thing. But I just want to say on behalf of St. George's School, University Counseling Department, that we are really grateful you're here tonight and most grateful that Mr. Prutow was able to join us again this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. You're so sweet.
No,